just hard of hearing extremely. So if you have questions, I may not hear it. I may have to have an interpreter whisper it in my ear. It is what it is, and I'm doing the best I can. Of course, I have hearing aids, but they're starting to become less and less effective. So my story, and some of you have heard it before, I come from iffy beginnings. If my mother and father hadn't met in 1933, I wouldn't be here. So that was iffy. They met in 1933 in the Berkshire Mountains in western Massachusetts. Beautiful country. Yeah. My father was an engineer, a chemical engineer, went to school at Worcester Polytechnical Institute in Worcester, Massachusetts, and got a job, well, married my mother right about the same time, got a job with Procter & Gamble, was recruited by Procter & Gamble, and they had a big plant in Staten Island, New York, where I was born. Whoa. I have two sisters. You have to guess which one is me. not hard. So Staten Island was a great place to be. Close to New York. We got a chance to go to the Staten Island Zoo, the Bronx Zoo. We did a lot of traveling, and I love to ride the Staten Island Ferry. If you haven't done that in New York, you want to do that. But we moved to New Jersey. When I was 5 or 6 years old, we moved to New Jersey. My father wanted to buy a house, and he had a commute back then of about 60 miles, which is amazing, in through Staten Island. So New Jersey was great. I would disappear when I was a kid. I would disappear at the crack of dawn, ride my bike, and play baseball all day long. You know, nobody worried about it. It was a great community. And then my signal to come home was when it started to get dark, I'd come home, and that's the way I lived during the summer. Of course, went to school, walked to school, and then my father got a promotion from Westfield to Portsmouth, Virginia, the Tidewater area in Virginia, and beautiful marshy country and rivers, the Elizabeth River, the James River, went right past Norfolk, Virginia. I was in Portsmouth, but a great time to grow up. I can remember when I was 12 years old, after school, we'd go water skiing in our clothes. We'd pull up our pants as much as we could, get a snap start off the dock, water ski all the way to the Elizabeth River, and then go next to the dock and step off the dock and be dry in 5 minutes. It was neat. We did that a lot. Then Cincinnati called. When you work for Procter & Gamble, Cincinnati is the headquarters. By the way, my father was chief chemical engineer in Portsmouth at the Jif peanut butter plant. Procter & Gamble makes Jif. To this day, you will never catch me eating peanut butter. I had too much peanut butter as a kid. So we went to Cincinnati, and I enjoyed that. My high school years were fun. This is me, my high school graduation picture. And
nothing's changed, right?
I went from there to Ohio University. That's not Ohio State. It's in Athens, Ohio University. My girlfriend, by the way, went to Northwestern. You probably crossed paths right about the same time. But so anyway, I'm in Ohio University, and I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Journalism, and I wanted to go into advertising of some sort, and that was great. During one of my college summers, I would travel out. Well, I hitchhiked out to California. There was a thing called Manpower. I don't know if it's still in business. Temporary agency. You would go to Manpower early in the morning. They would send you out on jobs, and they sent me out on a job that I liked. It was a week's job, and they weren't supposed to do it, but they ended up hiring me for the warehouse. I was basically unload rugs and get them ready to ship out to furniture stores. At the end of the summer, by the end of the summer, I was a warehouse manager, and I had to confess to the boss, who was a neat guy, Mr. Beacom, that I was going back to school. And he wasn't happy about that, but between the two of us, we hired and trained a new warehouse guy. So we corresponded over my senior year and decided I wanted to work in California anyway. This is San Pedro, California. So I went to work for him when I graduated and did a variety of things. Sales. He was a large importer and distributor of area rugs. From Japan, we got braided rugs. I don't think they're very popular anymore, but used to sell by the tons, braided rugs. And then we imported from India hand-knotted Oriental rugs. And also Belgium, what most people don't know, Belgium creates the most Oriental rugs. That's where the Oriental rugs come from. They can do it inexpensively. The hand-knotted stuff obviously costs much more. So I enjoyed, when I came out to California, I enjoyed it. I wanted to be in California, so what happens is I get transferred in 6 months to Dallas, Texas. And wasn't sure I wanted to do that, but yeah, I wanted to stay with the company, and so why not? Go to Texas, my first experience in Texas. Of course, most people that have not been to Texas, they picture West Texas, the way West Texas is. And of course, it's not at all like that. When I flew in the first time, green, what are all these trees doing here? So, anyway, it turned out that I really liked Texas, lived there a couple of years, Dallas, I mean. And then I got transferred to San Francisco, almost turned that down because I love Dallas so much, but it was a good opportunity. And went to San Francisco and had a great time. Then I was transferred to Houston, Texas, to a troubled area that I was kind of a fixer. I was known as a fixer in the company, and I fixed up that branch. And that's where I started my family. And I married a wonderful woman named Myra, who's still in my life. We're divorced, but she's still in my life. We're best friends. And one of these days, she's going to move back to Texas. And then we'll talk. And these are my kids. I have 2 daughters, Catherine and Miranda. Miranda is the younger one. She's now known as Sonora. She's, I've shown pictures before. She's the actress, and pretty much has given up on acting, but is on the periphery. She's a speech coach, and she went to school here on her undergraduate work at St. Edward's, and she has a graduate degree, a master's in fine arts from Brooklyn, and she loves New York. Of course, she lives in LA now because that's where the work is. But anyway, she changed her name to Sonora. That's a long story. When I just talked to her, she's Miranda, but around her friends, I call her Sonora. So she's a bad girl. She hasn't produced any grandchildren. But my other, that lives in Fort Wayne, Indiana, has produced wonderful grandchildren, Jackson and Delaney. And it's funny. I see families that all stick together, and I think that's such a great concept. You're a great example of that, Jude. But when I grew up, it was just known that you fly away, and but there's something to be gained by a family sticking together. But that was success back then. You got a job, you went away, and you got together at Christmas, with the rest of your family. So at any rate, those are my grandchildren. That brings me, let's see, we moved, we started in Houston, then transferred, great job opening, headhunter found me. I moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana. That's why my older daughter had decided to live there and loves it. So now I'm in Indiana, and I must admit, I was a hard charger back then. I would take off on an airplane on Sunday, come back on a Friday, and did this, for way too long. And my marriage suffered for it. Got divorced in 1990 and decided to change my life. So where would I come? I was actually going to move to Houston, and then I thought, I just had everything in my car. So I show up in Houston at a friend of mine's place, I know too many people in Houston. If I'm going to start over, go somewhere where I know no one. So I kept on going, came here to Austin, and stayed at what's now on Middle Fiskville Road near where Highland Mall used to be. It was what used to be a Hilton. Anyway, stayed there for a couple of weeks, figuring out what I was going to do, moved into an apartment, started a business, assumed fetal position. Now picture this, going through a divorce, moving, leaving a high-paying job,
New business.
all the stress producers. So I was in fetal position for a while, but I made it out, and eventually, and after some years, started this business, Park Promotional Design. And it was beans and rice for a couple of years, but then eventually I got out of that apartment, I bought a condo, and in 2003, Andrew James is guilty of selling me a house in Round Rock. He made me buy it. He was in the real estate business back then. But actually, I don't regret it. Round Rock's great. Even though my clients are all over the city, I do more and more, I communicate with texting because of my hearing issues, texting and emails. I can, if I'm right across the table from you, no problem. If I can see you speak, we can, no problem. But if there's a cacophony of noise, I just, my brain just for some reason turns everything off. But that's just the way it is. What do I like to do? I don't do it anymore. But I used to be an avid whitewater guide. This is me, and on the Deschutes River, right around 73, going through Boxcar Rapids, and I was the only one out of my group that made it without capsizing. So here's the proof as I'm entering into the rapids. So that kind of is my life in a nutshell. Moved to Austin, loved it. I came here at the right time, and Austin has been good to me. And right about 93, I heard this guy on KLBJ talk about this meeting at the Renaissance and networking, a concept of networking. A lot of people showed up that night, and it was a really good move for me because I didn't know very many people, but I sure knew a lot of people. And so I joined this organization back then, made a lot of great friends. Some of you have been friends for a long, long time, and I appreciate your business and your referrals. And that's my story. It's a good story.